So the next article I want to talk about is a WTOP news article entitled "To Avoid Premature Death, Fitness is More Important Than Losing Weight, New Research Finds." So again, we're back to the healthy at any size movement and the fat acceptance movement. And this sort of bugs me because the title should say fitness and losing weight are important, as opposed to, now it's not saying that losing weight isn't important, but the way that they word this is to make you believe most people will walk away from this thinking that if they get fit, but they're still overweight, it's okay. And that's not the take home of this. And that's the frustrating thing about just the traditional news media, man. It's like they cannot help themselves but to just twist the words and try to get across their own biases or their own thoughts. And it's unfortunate because most people don't read the headlines. Most people don't read the studies. But hey, that's what you have me for, right? So this was based off of a study entitled Cardiorespiratory Fitness, Body Mass Index, and Mortality, a Systematic Review and Meta-Analysis. Now, first and foremost, I just want to say I'm not a big fan of systematic reviews because they can choose different criteria. They can choose inclusion and exclusion criteria, meaning what are the criteria that the studies need to meet in order to be included in the meta-analysis or excluded in the meta-analysis. And that's a big deal because scientists, obviously they have ethical guidelines and all this, blah, blah, blah. But we are human beings. All people have bias. I don't care what you say, even scientists, the best of the best scientists. And that's why it's really important if you're ever reading a study to go down and see who funded the study, because you never know. For example, my friend Alex, love Alex, chiropractor that was just on, he sent me a study. If you scroll down to the very bottom of the study, turns out he was a chiropractor. The chiropractor in the study helped to fund the study. Now that's important because that chiropractor can adjust his methods, but change his methods. So let's say that someone has a very high intensity approach to chiropractic adjustments. Well, if they're doing a study and they're funding the study and that bias drips into the study, well, maybe they'll ease off of their intensity a little bit. Maybe they'll be extra gentle for this set of patients. That's not something that, well, they might pick on it, but they'll pick up on it, but a lot of times they won't pick up on it. It's a subconscious thing. And so it's very important that when looking at studies, dig into, like if you see a meta-analysis, that's like a compilation of a bunch of different studies, dig into individual studies. Very important. And I honestly, this is just personal preference. I'm a big fan of just individual randomized control trials, human randomized control trials, because I can just see it. It's very crystal clear, But so anyways, so what they set out to do, they had a reference group of normal weight individuals that were declared fit. And by fit, they mean good cardiorespiratory fitness. And then the comparison groups were overweight fit, obese fit, normal weight unfit, overweight unfit, and obese unfit. Okay. So just one more time, you have your reference group, which is normal weight and fit by cardiorespiratory fitness standards. And then the comparison groups were overweight fit, obese fit, normal weight unfit, overweight unfit, and obese unfit. When looking at the two outcomes that they measured were cardiovascular disease risk and all-cause mortality. So I'm going to go over all-cause mortality here first. And this is the one thing that I sort of have a little bit of an issue with. Now, hazard ratio, which is essentially like what is the percentage increase or decrease of risk. So when we look at overweight fit individuals had a hazard ratio of 0.96, meaning they had a 4% reduction in all-cause mortality. Just to say that one more time, overweight fit individuals, so they're overweight, but they're fit, good cardiorespiratory fitness, had a hazard ratio of 0.96, a 4% reduction in all-cause mortality, meaning overweight is protective. And then the obese fit individuals had a hazard ratio of 1.11, meaning they had an 11% increase in all-cause mortality. Now, both of these are not statistically significant. And this is what I don't like about these types of studies, because they do this statistical analysis and they can cherry pick all kinds of stuff. They can keep entering in different data sets until they get the number that they want. But essentially, without going too far down the rabbit hole, there's something called a p-value. And once that's set, if the confidence interval crosses 1 for this particular study, then it's declared not statistically significant, regardless of what the hazard ratio said. So even though obese fit individuals still had an 11% increase in all-cause mortality, they declared it not statistically significant. But now on to the unfit individuals. So you have normal weight unfit with hazard ratio of 1.92. That's huge. So that's a 92% increase in all-cause mortality. And then overweight unfit, which had a hazard ratio of 1.82, 82% increase in all-cause mortality. And then obese unfit with a hazard ratio of 2.04. So 200% increase, or 100% increase, sorry. Something to think about here is there is a protective effect of being overweight. Now, this goes into the whole, is BMI even a good marker? And is all-cause mortality even something good to measure? Because all-cause mortality, it's not just health markers. It's not just, heart disease risk, cancer, type 2 diabetes, all this stuff. All-cause mortality means all causes. So that means car accidents, that means murder, that means all kinds of different things. Like, let's take overweight, unfit individuals being lower than normal weight, unfit. Well, if someone that's overweight falls, it's thought that there's a protective effect there. If someone's like normal weight or even light and they fall, and it's a particularly bad fall, they're at a much greater risk of shattering their hip or some other sort of fracture. That's an important thing to take into account. Okay. I can't say for certain, but this is going to bring me to cardiovascular disease risk and why I think this is a more important statistic. So overweight fit. So again, they're going to declare these not statistically significant, which in my mind, these are still things that should raise red flags and people still need to pay attention to it. Because again, it's about opening up the lines of communication, talking about it like, that's interesting. Even though it's not statistically significant, there was still a 50% increase in their risk of cardiovascular disease. Okay, so why don't we do another study and keep seeing, so hopefully this study was peer reviewed. Could not find if it was or not, but hopefully someone tries to replicate these results and maybe they find something different. That happens all the time. There's a replication crisis in psychology. There's actually been 2 different replication crises where a large amount of studies that are in the databases right now where people went to go replicate them, they could not be replicated. So it's very important, that replication process. So overweight but fit individuals had a hazard ratio of 1.50, so meaning 50% increase in cardiovascular disease risk, but not statistically significant. Okay, whatever. Like either way, 50% higher, that's a massive increase. And that goes against what the all-cause mortality group just said. Now we move on to obese but fit. And again, remember, this is the reference group here is normal weight but fit. So the obese but fit group had a hazard ratio of 1.62, meaning 62% increase in cardiovascular risk, higher risk of cardiovascular risk, disease risk, sorry. So that's a linear increase going from overweight to obese. And it's a massive increase going from normal weight through those 2 different populations. Now let's move on to unfit groups. So we have normal weight but unfit, hazard ratio of 2.04. So 2 times higher risk of cardiovascular disease. Overweight but unfit, hazard ratio 2.58, meaning a 2.6 times higher risk of cardiovascular disease. And then the obese unfit, hazard ratio of 3.35, a 3.3 times higher risk of cardiovascular disease. So again, in a linear fashion, you're seeing their risk go up, regardless of whether being fit with good cardiovascular health is better than not. Either way, what this is saying is that being overweight comes with a massive increase in risk from cardiovascular disease. So again, this is why I don't think it's useful to just look at all-cause mortality. We have to look at the different, be very specific about the outcome that you're measuring. Because there are all kinds of confoundings when it comes to all-cause mortality. For example, people that are into health and fitness, they're going to do activities that are inherently more risky. For example, they are more likely going to go hike on a advanced hike that has 5,000 feet of elevation or 10,000 feet of elevation. They're more likely to go do those dangerous activities. People get injured and die on some of those activities. Getting hit by a car. I'm a runner. So I spend a lot more time out in traffic with no protection than the average individual. So I would be declared a normal weight but fit individual. I was almost hit by a car 3 days ago. If that car had struck me and I had lost my life, I would have fallen in that all-cause mortality bucket, right? So there are all kinds of little things that people don't think about when that can confound the data that are very, very important.